The Alldus podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our AI in Action series, where leading minds in AI from across the world share their story, success, and advice. AI in Action cuts through the hype and explores the true impact of artificial intelligence in our world today.
We are here at Dublin Tech Summit and the Alldus podcast is on the road. I'm speaking with Clare Hickie. Clare Hickie is CTO of EMEA for Workday. Clare, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast today.
Not at all. Thank you for having me.
I am particularly interested in the conversations you're having with your customers now about their expectations and about the product and the services. And has it changed much in the last 12 to 18 months than maybe the conversations you're having before?
So in the role that I have, I interact with customers every single day. So and mainly dealing at an executive level. So CHRO, CFO, and a lot of CIOs. So I've now been at Workday, I think in 2 weeks' time, I'm celebrating my 8th year anniversary. I came customer side, by the way, so I was with GlaxoSmithKline for 15 years prior, which is where my introduction to Workday started. So I've always had an affiliation from a customer perspective, and not just affiliation, but equally be able to apply the empathy, because I've been in their chairs too, right? Yeah. And so in talking to customers, I have really seen a transition of conversation, especially when it comes to AI. And I'm going to say it's probably a bit more on really the conversation. Everyone knows that when it came to ChatGPT and OpenAI, that became a household name. What was that, 4 years ago now? And when it became a household name, of course, we all know that organizations and technology in particular was really leaning in on this incredible technology and, right down to where we are from an LLM perspective. And what was interesting from a Workday perspective, we had already been developing out AI, or actually we were calling it machine learning. We'd been doing that for 11 years. We just never sung and danced about it. We didn't need to. So our AI is literally built into the core of Workday. So it's not bolt-on. We were already delivering it with strong outcomes within our product, including being able to leverage from an LLM perspective and also equally from a generative AI perspective, very early days. So roll on, it became the household name that of course it's now known. And so it was important to us also that we could have those conversations with our customers. And we started to bed down many generative AI products within our entire product line, but equally from within an end-to-end business process. Give you an example of an end-to-end business process. You have managers who are trying to do some hiring, whether they be internal, external, and they're going to want to generate job descriptions. The job descriptions of the past would take, I think, there was something over 4 hours, and of course now you can do this in minutes. But when in conversation with some of our customers, at the time, I felt that there was a bit of a resistance, because this world was quite a new world in terms of, how much of that actual role is now going to be taken. And really wanting to look at the evidence behind the productivity, behind the capabilities that, of course, we were developing out. And so I would almost say there was a degree of some tough conversations at the table, especially when it came to generative AI and really trying to explain what AI was. Now, roll on another 4 years, and of course into today and this moment in time, and all of our customers are coming to the table, and of course what they really want to leverage is what are we doing from an agentic perspective. Sure. So I've really seen the trajectory of the maturity scale, I think, over the past 4 or 5 years when it came to AI. When I joined Workday, we were just talking about it in terms of how we were looking at this from engineering. And of course it's taken this huge leapfrog into, of course, really delivering it in terms of where we are from a product perspective. So I find that whole conversation incredibly interesting. And equally, now you would have known this, there was a lot of promise made when it came to AI also, right? And the promise was to deliver, of course, a lot in terms of what it looked like for a returning of investment perspective. And this particularly came to generative AI, but other forms too. And for many, that was not accomplished. And I'm not just saying that that has been available in the media for a long, long time in terms of not being able to draw down on the efficiencies and the promises made. I know many that actually had labs set up. They were giving a budget to go and recruit, and then they were told to go find a problem. Now, you and I both know, as technology professionals, you try not to go find the problem. The problem is blatantly obvious when it happens. And when in that mode, then you're obviously building out really quickly. You're putting a huge amount of investment into it, expecting an outcome, and those outcomes were not necessarily met for many of our customers, or some of our customers, should I say. But however, like the positivity that is resonating right around the board table or any of the meetings we have is actually really refreshing. But what they really wanting to understand is, one is like, what have we already delivered on? But more importantly, what does that productivity and the productivity really means for them in their organisations, especially in the world of Agentic.
Where you find your customers' expectations now, and I know there's a spectrum, how do you manage them?
Yeah, so one is, can I just say this, we've always been known for, and it's very important to us to co-create. So we've always invited our customers into design groups. We've always spoken to them and really understood what their requirements are. And we brainstorm a lot with our customers. And equally, when it comes to the world of AI and Agentic, it's no different in terms of how we approach it. Now, remember, change is the hardest thing about anything in the world, right? And how do you overcome change? You always overcome change by taking the people with you. So this is why it's really important that we continue to be able to work with our customers. So where we're delivering out from an Agentic perspective, we actually have got an early adopters program. So our customers are actually early adopters of those particular Agentic capabilities, and then provide us the feedback before we then make them, of course, generally available. That delivers two things. We can be assured that what we're delivering is actually meeting the expectations of the customers. But what it also provides is, where you have got hundreds of customers in early adopter, you're able to see the productivity.
Yeah.
So this goes back to the statement I made earlier. Sometimes AI would come to market in terms of whichever form of product, and then there was a little bit of, because it's very hard to see that return. And so it's really important to us that evidentially we're looking at what that return starts to look like within what we're delivering, especially from an Agentic side, and that's as a consequence of those customers.
Is there any particular use cases you've found have gone particularly well, or some kind of statistics or something that you could actually point to where you've seen some uptake or satisfaction?
Yeah, of course. So some of the ones here, for example, that are really important to us. So we've just released our self-service agent. I think a self-service agent is incredible. I was talking to a customer about this only yesterday. And I said, isn't it amazing? I said, we went through as humans in the workplace or in our personal lives, is all we want to do is like, I just want to talk to a person.
Yeah.
And we've now into the stage of where we are in terms of maturity and in that curve of leaning into technology. We're going, actually, I just want to do a self-service at this point. Yeah. So from our self-service agent, what we're seeing is that customers have got lower case volumes by 25%, which of course then is actually really improving the employee experience. We also, for example, we have got a deployment agent. This automates workflows required to configure Workday, and basically systems cutting implementation times by up to 25%. Our recruiting agent provides 53% increase in capacity. When I talk to customers about that alone, because that's a significant time to give back.
Yeah.
I had one customer, I want to say this a couple of months back, but basically they looked at me and they said, well, what are we going to do with the time back? And I thought, you'll find a way of being able to ensure that your organisation are supported to meet your strategic goals, because of course AI is doing that lifting. So we really are seeing some really substantial boost in productivity, and as I said, like, it's really important to us that we provide that by that co-creation.
I think also customers want that kind of choice, don't
Yeah.
they? Because on the self-serve, it could be 4 a.m, they're up, they want to get something answered, or it could be after 7 p.m, they want to get answered. So they're leaning in on that. How have you managed the consistency, particularly in the world of agents, which they can be kind of more inconsistent rather than kind of some of the other standard workflows?
I think it's really interesting because, I'm going to say this, is that we're very used to dealing with UI frameworks. So like, anything that we're kind of interacting with now, be it on our mobiles, on our personal devices from an app perspective, there was already consistency applied. Yeah. I was on a panel earlier, funny enough, and I was talking about this one thing alone, is that we have been able to adapt really easily in terms of what consistency looks like, so that we will interact and provide that layer of engagement, even though to some degree there's inconsistency. Because you literally could have 50 apps and they're all inconsistent in terms of how your security is set up, to what the UI looks like and how you're managing engagement, your input, your output. And so it's important to us that, and this is really interesting, Workday was now set up over 21 years ago, and we set up on some really incredible foundational principles. But one was certainly around, as you know, everything is in a multi-tenant environment, but all of our customers are in the exact same version, which was, we were literally went cloud first with absolutely everything that was achieved. So that level of consistency was there with how that was delivered, and equally the releases that we delivered, of course, twice a year. Then when you start to introduce Agentic, then it's really important to us that actually we keep that consistent in terms of what that starts to really look like and what we build out for. The other thing I'm going to say is that we do make sure that we run everything through in terms of what that usability starts to look like. Really interestingly, only yesterday we had our Accessibility Advisory Council in Dublin. I had the amazing opportunity to go and speak to that council. And that becomes really important. You have to be the most diverse organisation in the world to be able to ensure that you're meeting requirements at all levels for 11,500 customers and 75 million workers across the globe. But what's really important to us is that only in Dublin, actually, we have some UX labs already set up. So anyone that comes into Dublin has got that opportunity to go and see in terms of how we're managing that from a user experience, but delivering that consistency in terms of everything that we do. And of course, the advantage point, and you mentioned it there even earlier, the advantage point is because of the foundation, because it's not been a bolt-on, but actually we can deliver pretty much, really at speed.
Yeah.
And for us, I think that's interesting, because sometimes you could have a roadmap out and the roadmap would be going out for 18 months. We're not seeing that anymore.
Yeah.
Like, you're able to really start to, from almost the concept to how we manage it through the engineering and the development, to then putting it into our customers' hands. You really are talking months in terms of getting them through that process.
At Alldus, we're helping companies hire professionals in the field of cybersecurity and AI on permanent and contract. And our differentiator is we're helping companies hire people that we really trust. And we build that trust through referrals. Over 85% of the people that we place into roles on contract or permanent are through referrals of people we know who recommend them. This is really important, particularly in the world of cyber, where you want to have professionals who are really good at their job, who are trusted, and they can come in and add value to your business. On contract, we've got some of the most niche skills available for people to hire, but also we're introducing virtual CISOs. CISOs that can come in and work in your business between 1, 2, 3, 4 days a month, if not a little bit more. If you're interested in finding out a little bit more about the services Alldus provide, please feel free to get in touch. Now back to the show. Walk me through responsible AI.
Yeah.
And we've got a lot of regulation.
Yeah.
In some ways it's kind of clear as mud, but we have to start somewhere with a foundation, right? We have to be able to build it out. And unfortunately, different geographies have got different interpretations, so it makes it very, very challenging. There's no kind of one source of the truth. What are your kind of principles, your governance? How do you think about that?
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think responsible AI is the one singular modem for making customers and workers comfortable when using any level of technology. Yeah. And again, we were on the panel, we were talking about it earlier in terms of why can we adopt so easily in our personal lives, unless when we open the door of work and we go, oh no, we're not going to, no, you're running AI. But actually it's really important to talk about AI in terms of what this looks like as a program of being responsible. And so we developed out a program back in 2022. We have a phenomenal Chief Responsible AI Officer at Workday, Dr. Kelly Trendle. If you ever she's over here, please, you should bring her on the show. But she's got a team of analysts and advisors available to her that really keep us safe in terms of those safeguards. But let me start off with explaining you first need to have a set of principles, and they're our North Star. And actually the first one of them is ensuring that it augments human potential. The second one is actually it has a positive impact on society. Now, you and I both know, and anyone listening to this, is that we've seen far too many cases of what negative impact actually AI can have. So that's really important. That is one of our North Stars. Obviously, always ensuring the data privacy of our customers, and then also ensuring it's transparent. So we have got literally a fact sheet available that we provide to all of our customers for every one of our capabilities that describes the feature, the function, but not only that, the data that's used and exactly how it's tested and what it's tested for. So for example, bias is obviously included within that. So you keep your North Star, and then you have got a fundamental set of practices. And so we adopted the NIST-based framework. It's a very, very popular framework for many, many tech companies. And so we basically look at everything from a use case perspective to in terms of how we're delivering it. And we literally run it through the risk-based assessment. And I always say this when I'm talking about it, is that risk is not bad. It's just really important to understand where actually it is in the risk framework. And so, for example, when you're looking at, for example, hiring and promotions, you know that would fall into a high risk category, whereas anomaly detection in expenses is probably on the lower risk side. And then there's some things that actually you're never going to go with, okay? So we run everything through the NIST-based framework, and obviously we got a category, is it AI at all? Sometimes like it just actually is just basically building out another feature that's deterministic. And then there are other areas, it's going to have an economic impact, an individual impact, etc. So we run everything through the NIST-based framework. And then, as I said, we have got a phenomenal team, including Dr. Kelly Trendle, that really heads this up. But we equally got an advisory board. But that isn't enough, because with an organisation now of our size, which we're incredibly proud of, we have got champions scattered throughout the organisation that are basically still the eyes and ears for everything that happens, equally to keep everyone safe. And then finally, from a policy perspective, we've been working with the policy makers around the globe for years. And so we literally have got boots in the ground where those policy makers are defining the policy, including, for example, US Congress. And of course, we have got a phenomenal colleague that's working out with the EU, and then of course into the UK and down into the Asia Pacific area as well. So that's really important. We've been working with those policy makers, as I said, for many years. And I think it is really important that organisations like ours, who's got that depth of experience, can bring the conversation to the table. But equally, it's important to us to understand how actually the laws are being defined and ever changing. Actually, really interestingly, only a couple of weeks ago, I was over in Venice at the Data Privacy Symposium. So that was incredible, by the way, because it's just really important to be part of the conversation with the policymakers and actually with the academics also. So that is really important to us. We have got obviously the first ISO standard, so ISO standard 4201, and we've got that certification. And then also it's really important to us, of course, that we've got the NIST or Risk Management Framework accreditation also. I do believe that we are the only technology organisation that handles both people and money, which is the two most important assets of any organisation, that actually carry both that accreditation and certification.
Which I think is a real competitive advantage now, right? Differentiated, because you kind of, a lot of organisations won't go on that journey. Now there's a cost to that. There's the element where it's actually going to take longer in time, this first to market, and they'll actually forget about that. But in the world of trust,
and as I said,
right,
change, as we said, change comes down to individuals in terms of is that people are the hardest thing to actually change. And you know what, I've been in technology for a good 30 years, and literally from the infancy of .com all the way through to cloud transformation, of course, now into the wonderful world of AI. And through my technology journey alone, no matter whether I built, borrowed, or literally bought, I knew that when I was lending something at any level and size scale of organisation, be they blue chip or be the technology company that I'm now working in it, that is Workday, the most important thing is take the people with you. And that's defined by trust. And that's why actually you're right, because every time I talk about it, it's like the customer's going, okay, now we know that actually we really are in safe hands. And of course, many of our experts can then talk to their CISO offices.
It's just such a strong foundation.
Yeah.
You just have to have that foundation. Clare Hickie, CTO of EMEA for Workday, thank you very much for joining us on the show.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.